Welcome to episode 283 of Control the Controllables, and brought to you by Novellus. This is our French Open review, and it's coming the night that the final of the men's singles has finished only a few hours ago, as Alexander Zverev wins his first major title, as does Mirra Andreeva win her first major title. Whereas on the doubles side, if you're world number one and ranked number one in the world, number one seeds, it was a full sweep in the men's doubles, the women's doubles and the mixed doubles. And I'm joined this evening by Freddie Nielsen, who's been an ever-present, or he did tell me he did miss the review back in 2021 after the Australian Open, to which I joked with him that was our most listened ever episode, Freddie. So maybe that was saying something. And also Calvin Betton, who the coach of Henry Patten, who as of tomorrow moves to world number one alongside Harri Heliövaara after their final appearance at Roland Garros. Lots to talk about in this one. We've had an incredible 2 weeks in Paris. I'm going to pass you over to our French Open review panelists. So a big welcome to our French Open review panelists, Freddie Nielsen and Calvin Betton. How are you doing?
Great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm in London, Paris to Malaga to London in 24 hours. And Calva, a big congrats, a couple of congrats from all of us at Control the Controllables. Another Grand Slam final, I believe a first Roland Garros final for the boys, and then moving to world number one tomorrow. So Henry Patten and Harri Heliövaara, big well done from us all.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Cheers. Yeah, the lads have done well. Like, a little bit bittersweet with not winning the final yesterday, but I think once a couple of days have gone, it'll settle in, and officially they become world number one tomorrow. Harri said that after the semi, the only way they couldn't have done it was with a default. A little bit of a shaky moment when Harri threw his racket at his bench halfway through the second set yesterday.
I saw that.
Where that was going to bounce was a little bit heart in mouth. But yeah, no, the lads have done great. I mean, they had a chance to be world number one. They had a match to be world number one exactly 12 months ago in the quarterfinals at the French, and lost that match. And they haven't had another match to do that since, even though they've been pretty much the dominant team on tour for the last 9 months. I'd say since post-US Open, they've been the dominant team on tour, but haven't actually ever come close to being world number one in that period, which was strange. But I mean, like I said to them the other day, it kind of fit in, because I feel like if we'd have done it a year ago, that opportunity kind of came out of the blue. I think we were among the best teams in the world, but I don't think at that time we were the best team in the world. Aravalo Pavic were on a phenomenal run of form at that period, and by sort of freak of ranking points, we could have become world number one. But I feel like this time they actually are the best team in the world. And I think it's kind of fitting that they've done it now, and they've kind of they're in a great spot now, Henry and Harri, because they don't have a whole lot to defend between now and the Asian swing. So anything that they get is just opening up a gap, really, whereas the teams around them have got quite a bit to defend in that period. Like Lloyd and Jules obviously got a load to defend over the grass and going into the hards. Neil Skubsky has got Wimbledon semi, US Open final, Toronto final to defend. Granola Zebios got Wimbledon semi, US Open win to defend. So, they've kind of, Henry and Harri don't have any of that. They have a couple of quarterfinals, I think. That's it.
And just whilst we've got you, we on the doubles actually side of things, I know we're going to jump into the singles, and we predominantly talk about the singles in these reviews, but the top seeds in every doubles event, the men's doubles, women's doubles, and mixed doubles was won by top seeds, which is maybe the opposite to the singles, which we'll get into in a bit. But how do you prepare for a Grand Slam final like that? And tell us a little bit about the final as well. I mean, I did watch it pretty much most most of the match, and it always just felt it was going the way of Granollers Zeballos. It felt that they just kind of had their claws in the match, and it was going to be a tough match to turn around. Sometimes hard to put your finger on it, but just as a tennis fan, you sometimes feel that as well. But tell us about the preparation first, and then a little bit about the final.
I mean, yeah, we had a day off the day before, and we had a hit on Chatrier then, and knowing that we were going to be 11 o'clock in the morning, which I thought was a pretty crap organisation. Like playing a Grand Slam final at 11 o'clock in the morning, I don't think is, no one should be doing that really at any standard. What kind of concerned me the day before was that we got there for the practice. I think our practice the day before was 10:45 to 11:45. And the court was damp. It was really wet. And I was told that we'd already practiced on Chatrier a couple of days before that early morning. And we're told that they drench the court every morning at 8 a.m. But they normally don't start matches until midday on Chatrier. And I was a little bit concerned if they're drenching this court like this at 8 a.m. and this is what the court's like at 10:45, it's going to be extremely slow when we play the next day, because I knew that the roof was going to be closed. The weather forecast wasn't great, so it wasn't going to get any sun on it. And it actually transpired that was the case. They still drenched the court at 8 a.m. And by the time we had our pre-match on it at 9:30, it was still very, very damp and very wet. And then by the time the match started, it was extremely wet and damp and slow. And when they shut the roof, it just kind of makes everything a little bit more humid. And it just slows the conditions down, and that was never going to work in our favour, the way that we play. On top of that, like Harri had sort of struggled a little bit with his first serve percentage during the week, but what he had done exceptionally well is hit his kicker, which is an extremely good and aggressive kicker, and it was almost as effective. Not say almost, it was as effective as a first serve in the first week when it was hot and it was dry. And the ball was just bouncing and the conditions were lively. And his first serve, his second serve, his kick serve in the first 2 or 3 rounds was just, like say, he was barely losing points on it. I think he won 85% of second serve points in the first 2 rounds. When we get to those conditions that we had yesterday, when the court's wet and it's damp, it just doesn't take a kick at all. And so the ball was kind of coming in just at a nice height for Granollers Zeballos. And it kind of, Harri struggled on his service games, and then Henry struggled on his in the second set. And I knew kind of early on in the match, in the first game of the match, Zeballos took a full swing at Henry's first serve, which no one does. And you could see then how slow the court was. And yeah, we just struggled. I mean, we actually broke twice, and we had 15-40 in another game, and we had a couple of 30-alls as well. But we just struggled to hold our own serve. And that was, they're a very, very good slow court team. And Zeballos' coach, who I've come to know pretty well, afterwards he said to me that if that match should have been played in the first week, the scoreline would have been reversed. And I think he's probably right in that. But, it wasn't. It was played in those conditions, and that's what you get.
And how do you make that shift? Because on Chatrier as well, you're so far away from the players. It's very difficult to get messages to them. And
again, it's how things work out, how situations work out. Like Harri was struggling a bit with his serve, but he was serving at the far end as well, away from us. And you're so far away that we just felt like we couldn't influence anything from where we're sat. I mean, I noticed you were sat there, I think, a couple of days before, maybe in the mixed final, and I just don't know how some of these tournaments, I just don't know how they managed to get it so far wrong. They've all seen what Australia does, and that's the ultimate. That's it's excellent what Australia does. They have the coaching pod on the court. You're literally at the side of the court. They can get the TV cameras on. They can hear what you're saying, and it just everything feels more involved. Those coaching boxes in Chatrier are miles away. You can't.
No, miles away.
I don't know why they're there, because there's I counted it. There's 8 rows of seats before the coaching box. Well, I don't know why is the coaching box. They're still quite far away, even if you're on the front row. But at least you're on the front row. Why do they need to be 8 rows back for the coaching boxes? But like most things at Roland Garros, there's no explanation to it, and you just get a shrug of the shoulders when you ask why. So But yeah, it was, it was difficult. We felt like we just couldn't really grasp anything and get anything back, and then they got Granollers and Zeballos at that moment when we did kind of get it back. They got a little bit lucky on a couple of points, and it just felt like we just didn't, we couldn't find anything on the day really.
Well done, and also a big well done to Sara Rani, Andre Vavasori as well, mixed doubles champions.
Is that a way into getting attention up to you now?
No, I'm flashing well over that and coming to singles, Freddie. Don't worry about that. But
no, you got to give yourself a second of credit. You had a good tournament too with your players.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Yeah, I mean the players. Look, at the end of the day, I think as you guys well know, the deeper you get into those tournaments, sometimes the harder the fall feels in those big matches. When you feel so close. But I think exactly what Calvin says. You have a little bit of time to reflect, and you actually look at it as the result means more a little bit later. And I know for Gabby Dabrowski, that's her first semi-final of women's doubles at Roland Garros, and she's obviously had a great career but never made the semis. Same with Louisa Stefani as well. It is her third French Open mixed doubles final loss, which I made the error of telling her how nice the trophy was 2 minutes after the match in the gym, to which she told me it's just the same as the other final losses that I've had. So that was maybe a bit of a learning, for me coaching wise. And then also I think a good tournament as well. As many people know, recently started work with Andre Goranson, who's playing with Evan King. I think they had a strong tournament as well. They've had a pretty good clay court season from the ranking that they're at, and had a couple of good wins and came across the best team in the world in the third round. Went head to head with Calvin and got our asses whooped. But fair play to it was also a pleasure to actually watch. I mean, obviously I know Harri very well, but to see Henry up close in that match, it was like, wow, he was super, super, super impressive. It was like, this guy, like, where do you serve to him? What do you do against him? Like, really, it felt any ball he touched. So yeah, I think overall a fantastic tournament, and nice to be a part of that. And a big shout and fair play to Siniakov and Townsend. They've won their third major. They played an incredible semi-finals against my girls, and then went on to win the final. And like I said, the top seeds in all of the doubles events got the job done, which wasn't the case on the singles, Freddie. And
Can I just say one point that you both said about the toughness of the losses? Don't you also feel that sometimes when you go deep in a big tournament like that, it feels like, because it's so much hard work and you know how much goes into going deep, and you don't take it for granted, that once you're there and you lose, you're kind of like, we were this close and now we have to do it all over again. Whereas if you lose in the first few rounds, you don't have that feeling as strongly.
I think, and Calv, you jump in a second. I think for me on that, I as a coach will never take for granted that the players that I'm working with are in that situation. So it might be the last time, right? It is the reality, and it might be the last time for the players. So I think naturally you feel that I think you naturally are already very tired. So I think there's there's a stronger emotion that goes with it. And again, I'm not speaking for you, Cal, but I think I certainly felt it. I mean, even another player I worked with, Cleve Harper, got into the event actually as fifth alternate. So there was a lot going on throughout the whole of Roland Garros, and it did feel, I must admit, my last 2 or 3 days there, I felt absolutely exhausted. So, and then you're like, and for us on the women's side, playing a Siniakov at Townsend, you feel every shot they're going to hit, because I've watched them so much and you've scouted so much, and you kind of have this, you're just completely engrossed in it, right? So I think all of those things, and you're obviously so connected to your players. You know what it means to them. You know that what they're not just what they've done those 2 weeks, but their whole careers. You tend to then have, rightly so, the junior coaches that are involved in some ways, or like the family, or everything that's gone on the 25 years to get there as well, and it feels it all comes to this head and this period, but you're then trying to just keep the player in that moment, and you're talking your game plans, and you're trying to stay absolutely in that present moment. And so I think it's a whole kind of host of different emotions. It's and maybe I don't know if this makes sense, Freddie, but it's like if I sometimes do with kids at the start of a session in an academy, I'll say, right, first one to get a rally of not first one, you've got to get a rally of 50 before you do anything else. And if they get to 48 and miss, it's like, oh, and it's then very hard to start the rally again, because it's like you're dealing with that. Whereas if they miss the first couple of shots, it's like, I've got another go, and I suppose there's probably a little element of that as well. But yeah, it does. Everything feels bigger. Everything feels, but that's also it's a big privilege to be a part of those experiences as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different experience for me yesterday because it's the first time we lost a Grand Slam final, obviously. It was a bit strange because, like, the lads won't mind me saying this, we didn't really perform and didn't play very well. And I think it was like, I remember like the Wimbledon final and the Australian Open finals that we won a couple of years ago. I don't know whether it would have felt worse or better if those matches we actually played very well. Both matches were very close, and we could have lost either of them. They could have gone the other way, and I don't know whether it would have felt how that would have felt. But yesterday just felt a bit like it was more a frustration rather than a disappointment. I was disappointed without a doubt, but it was a frustration that like I don't know that we didn't really make them do much either. I didn't think that it's not any criticism of Granola Zeballos. I don't think they played particularly well. It wasn't like, they were just too good. Like, they were too good for us because we didn't play well, and they might have had another couple of levels to go up. But that's where the disappointment came for me, I suppose, that it felt like we didn't really leave it all out there, to be honest.
Freddie.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I was just wondering because sometimes when I was there as a player, it felt once you get in there, you know how much it takes to come back, and it's hard work, like you guys have been through. And obviously, sometimes you guys have so much more to do outside the court than the players. I've not been going that deep into a tournament as a coach, so I haven't experienced that from a coaching point of view. But it feels like obviously you guys had it's been a pretty extravagant 2 weeks from you guys, and it must be tough. You said physically then, of course, but maybe also because when you get that deep, you also feel like this was a good chance to maybe get something out of it.
I mean, it's also like it was different for us this run as well, in that we had quite a nice draw, admittedly. In that the Kino's team, Evan and Andre, were the only set doubles pair that we played against before the final. Like we played first round, we played two singles players. Second round, we played two singles players. Then we played Evan and Andre. Then we played a doubles pair who just repaired to get in the tournament in Demolina and Balaji. And then we played another couple of singles players. So, we've never really had that. Both our slam wins, we've actually had pretty tough draws in them. And we played almost, I think, we've played in both slams that we won, we only played one singles pair in those 12 matches. And this time we played three right there, and then so it was kind of like a bit. It did it, like when you go to the slams, you feel like you've got to, in order to win it, you've got to beat the best players, and it was a bit of a strange one getting to the final. I mean, admittedly, like Halys Herbert are in particular a very good singles doubles pair. Like Herbert's won 5 slam titles, and Halys,
he's got all 4, right?
Yeah. But still, it's still like they haven't won anything as a pair, so it was kind of like, it was a strange way to get to the final, but it was a strange tournament all round, the men's doubles.
Yeah, but you got to put in the home side thing as well, to have them in the semifinal. They're playing well, they're at home. That's not easy.
It's not, no, but again, like the French, like it was a strange atmosphere out there. There was a lot of kids, and it felt like a bit of a circus more than anything. I don't think anything by any stretch. They've got that chant, that chant that they do, the bullfighting chant, the ba 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 ba, oi. And it got to a stage during the match where it was just silly. Like anyone who's played in France, like you guys have both played there and coached there and that kind of thing, you get that chant 5 or 6 times a set, usually. Like during this match, it was relentless. It was because there was so many kids in there. It was 7 or 8 times a point, 7 or 8 times a game, and it got to the stage then where it kind of like, it was noisy, but it wasn't particularly intimidating. Like I was on the court next to, we played our first match on the court next to Suzanne Longlon when Kwame played the lad from Paraguay, and that place was bouncing. Like Longlon was bouncing that day, and
long microphones around the whole, especially if you're around that court 8, 6, 8, 9 like area.
And there were people, I reckon there were 5,000 people around Longlon as well, watching the big screens on that day.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking that this lad, like, I mean, he didn't cover himself in glory afterwards, to be fair, but I remember thinking, like, this lad who's playing Kwame, to have that coming in on you, I think he was only like 19, to have that coming in on you, like, it must have been a hell of a lot of pressure. Whereas the day we were there, when we played, it just felt a bit silly.
I think the big one for me, Freddie, and I'm determined to move this on. Sorry, guys, as much as I love this. No, but I think it's great. It's important conversation, and to get Calv's insight, after what he's just experienced. But I think the big one for me, which, to reference Sabalenka and Sinner in this, the one that I see at major championships is that feeling of like, I'm got to put myself back into the fire again. I've got to go again, and I've got to be that performer again, and I've got to step onto that court, and I've got to step up again, and I've got to, do that in front of not just the crowd that are there, but the crowd on the TV, the country that are watching behind. A lot of these players, let's take Luisa Stefani, the whole of Brazil watches. It's a big deal. It's shown on ESPN in Brazil, and everyone's coming, and you're. I think any of us have that situation. I think it's one of my biggest challenges running an academy is like, and I go back to the academy. It's like, right, I've got to be the director of the academy again today, and I've got to come in with that, enthusiasm, and I've got to speak to parents, and I've got to. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do, and it's something I have so much respect for tennis players that are able to do it, and I think sometimes we watch and we think they're almost robots, right? And that having that look firsthand and being involved in these elite athletes, because it is the ones that are achieving that and sustainably achieving that. They're elite in mindset, whereas we do see certain players can nip in and have a good run, but then we don't see them for a while. We've seen it a lot on the women's side, and that was actually one of my feelings going into this event was with Jannik Sinner, of how he was going to do that again, right? How was he going to, we almost take it for granted. Oh, he's just going to win. That's just what he does. But it's like, it's not easy to just keep putting yourself into that fire, into that mixer. But Freddie, what it did achieve, and we talked about it kind of mid-tournament, for me, it produced a quite incredible Roland Garros this year. I think there was so many storylines, there was so many things going on. Granted, I think on the men's singles side, everyone almost ran out of steam, and we kind of limped over. Maybe the last the kind of quarterfinals on became a little bit of a limp, and even the final today, I know we had a 5-setter, but it was a little bit of a limp from both players, really, in terms of created a lot of drama, certainly at the end of the 4th set there, but it maybe didn't quite produce the highest level of tennis. But what was your take? I know you were there for the qualifying event, but watching on from afar, was the event as special as it felt being involved. Like there was a certain middle period there that like it felt like it was just every match was 5 sets, every match was doing this. The crowd were going crazy. You then like threw in PSG beating Arsenal in the middle of it while all of it was kicking off, and it felt like the real epicenter of the world was happening in Paris for a moment there.
Honestly, I felt like it was something that I didn't know tennis needed before it happened, but I felt like I felt like it was a bear coming out of hibernation, whereas for so many years, the Grand Slams have kind of been given until the later stages, and you kind of knew who was there. And it got a little bit predictable, particularly on the men's side. And even though it had been less predictable the last few years, the constants of Sinner and Alcaraz kind of prolonged that feeling that came from the Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, Murray times of tennis. And now I kind of felt like it was back to the days where Martin Verkerk would make a final. I think we spoke about that on the podcast as well. And I was sitting today with the feeling that this was kind of
2003
Gaudio against Korea final. This one, I had the same kind of feeling that these kind of finals are now possible, and I thought it was wildly entertaining, and I was pumped to follow it. Whereas I hadn't had the same enthusiasm because it was kind of given. And for example, we spoke on that live stream, and I kept saying Felix, and then last minute I go, nah, let's go for Cerundolo, and then the next day he loses to Swider. It's like there's no logic to this, but this kind of Wild West, I kind of feel like people need it, and there's been so much talk about the tournament. Everybody has been following it. I know some of my acquaintances in various threads are saying like, okay, Zverev won it, but it almost didn't feel like a Grand Slam. But this is what it was. I mean, this is how it used to be. Sometimes there were some wild tournaments, you know. I think back to, was it in '96 when Krajicek played Washington in the final of Wimbledon? I feel like we're back to the times where this could happen, or Gustavo Kiernan can make a run. So I think it was. I thought it was really entertaining, and I feel like every player in the draw will be thinking, okay, this could happen. You know, there are variables. You know, Carlos is out, Musetti is out, Holger is out, or whoever is out. And then, like you said, you called it before the tournament that Sinner was probably going to have a bad day, which on the live stream I also said I thought was a little bit becoming an old story, but it proved to be true. Then, despite I think he was the biggest bookmaker's favorite in like basically a long time. I think he was a bigger favorite than Rafa ever was. And still this could happen. So I'm all for it. Give me more.
Was it the biggest upset in Roland Garros history, Calv? Sinner going out in the second round?
Yeah, but I also
6-2, 6-2, 5-3. No, 6-2, 6-3, 5-1 up.
I think we also have to analyse it in a different way than that. It's been a bit disingenuous to say that. He was, for all intents and purposes, it was an injury. Like, he could have just retired at that point. For all that he was, for all that he offered after that point, if he'd have pulled his hamstring at that point and withdrawn, we wouldn't be sat talking about it like it's a massive upset and that kind of thing. Something happened. Now, we can talk about why it happened, like his preparation, that kind of thing, but he was not there at all from that point. He could have, like I say, he could have just retired at that point, and we wouldn't be talking about it like a massive upset. And that's.
But didn't he say that he felt like that all day long?
He said on the morning he woke up feeling that way, but then he said he was fine, and then at that point it felt he got a lot worse. But I mean,
you can't keep doing it. You can't keep doing it. Human beings can't keep doing it.
I went and watched the match on the court, and he couldn't perform, you know. And fair play to him that he stayed out there, you know. And I think he was staying out there just hoping something would change. But like I say, if that's an injury, and it was a type of injury, what he had, it was an illness, that I don't think we can put it in as like it was just a loss. You know, something happened in the match, and he, you know, like if
was it an illness? Was it an illness, or was it just?
No, well, he said it was
too many matches.
No, at the time we thought it was we thought it was just a heat exhaustion thing, but he said afterwards that he'd been ill in the morning, and then it had gone, and then it came back during the match, and he couldn't perform or anything. I'm sure there was a certain level of heat exhaustion in there. It was brutally hot, but I think, like I say, I think we have to take it in some context, and in that regard, that's why I don't think we can count it as the biggest upset that we've ever seen, because that you can only count that if the match gets finished on normal terms, and it just didn't. More than half the match, Sinner just wasn't there as an entity that we expect. I think Soderling beating Rafa, whatever year that was a much bigger upset, because Rafa was fully fit and he just couldn't find it that day.
But your line of questioning, Dan, does that mean that you think it was something, a mental exhaustion that manifested itself physically?
Yeah, I do. I think I one thing, and I don't think I said it that strongly on the preview, but it's something I felt strongly for a while, is I could not believe that he played Indian Wells, Miami, then he went Monte Carlo, then he went Madrid, then he went Rome. I could not believe he did that. Like for me, that was absolutely, if we're talking Roland Garros is the big one, and if we take Novak Djokovic right now, right, at his stage of his career, he basically only cares about Grand Slams. That's ultimately what is going to define someone's career. Now, obviously, Jannik Sinner could win all of the Masters 1000s this year, and that would be an incredible achievement. And that's going to watch this space for that, because I would imagine that that's something that's in his mind right now, especially with Carlos Alcaraz out. So there's a bit of an argument there that's going to be a historical year to do that, right? But you ultimately are defined by Grand Slams, by major titles, and for me, Jannik Sinner and his team have got this one wrong. I really believe that. Like, this was a Roland Garros that he could have pretty much strolled through, but I think he overplayed. I think playing those basically back-to-back 5 Masters 1000s was too much. It was too much tennis. And to refer to my point that I've made earlier, do not underestimate. Yes, we're watching Jannik Sinner win 2-2 and 2-3 and 3-4 and these sort of results, but he's having to get into that space, the nervous system being fully switched on, the preparation fully switched on, to jump into that fire and be Jannik Sinner, the world's best male tennis player. That's not an easy space to go into. Time and time again. And I think he already showed signs in Rome. People were talking about panic attacks. They were talking about, I think he does have some anxieties linked to how his body handles the heat and handles long matches. And 1-8 record in best of 5 sets. It's something crazy. Like, he, up until Australian Open, he'd never won a match over 3 hours 15 minutes. I think he does have some serious issues mentally with how he is able to handle that, and that on top of all of the matches, I think it was gonna catch him out at some point. And I'm absolutely convinced that's played a big role in what probably would have been his easiest major title to date to pick up and tick off the list.
But maybe his team will say the same now and say, "Oh, that was a mistake," and maybe he won't do it anymore. But he's also young, and maybe Darren Cahill could have advised some more. But it's still a young team, and they live as they learn. And we've also seen some of the other players throughout time also have some questionable scheduling. So maybe this is just part of the process, and maybe they thought, let's keep it rolling.
When he finishes on 24, like Novak Djokovic is going to, maybe he'll look back at this as his 25th, just like Novak will look back at the time that he hit the ball or hit the racket into the lines judge at US Open. When he was well on his way to winning that one. So it's going to happen. But the one thing I do want to pick up on the back of that, Freddie, is obviously Italian tennis has been talked about a lot, but they've kind of lived in the shadow of Jannik Sinner a little bit, right? The men. And then all of a sudden, it was like, Jannik's gone. We're here. Look at us. We're all here as well. It was that top half of the draw where they all kind of came about. Analdi against Berrettini to play Caboli in the semi-finals. We have talked about the Italians before, but they're doing something right. You know, it feels like a team. It feels like they're all on each other's side. Even playing, I know the mixed doubles final, it felt like you were playing against a bigger thing than just two players on the court. You know, they seem to be doing something that really not many, if any, other nations are doing right now.
It seems like they're doing some very good investments that are paying off and have been doing for a while. They have a lot of tournaments. They have a lot of momentum. From what I can understand, I'm quite interested in how they support from a federation. They've changed the way they support. Instead of centralized in the national center, they let people do their own thing and then support that financially. And they have a very good system from the juniors and up. And it really seems like they're doing something really right in creating a long-term sustainable funding system. And you mentioned Yannick Sinner, but they've also haven't they won Davis Cup like 3 times in a row or something like that? And the Koboli and
King as well.
Yeah, and Koboli and Analdi are some players that I was gonna expect more of based on what I've seen, and Analdi particularly when I think he clinched the Davis Cup for Italy 3 years ago or 2 years ago, and I thought he was a fantastic player, and Koboli as well. So for me, it's not fantastically surprising, but it is interesting to see that it's going so well, and it kind of looks like it's going to keep producing well because they're doing something structurally and fundamentally right by the looks of it to make success sustainable. And then, from what I hear, a lot of the finances they get is based on the success of Sinner, so it certainly doesn't hurt them that they have a guy like that leading the way.
But also culturally, that's the one for me. We can talk about investment, we can talk about finance, we can talk about tournaments, but like they walk off the court, they're waiting for each other. There's they seem to have this team. They seem to have this team, Calv. Like what? Like that's like I always talk about this. Not that anyone needs to be congratulating me at the World Tour the WTA finals, but I saw all of the different British people the week that Gabby and Erin won in Riyadh, and I saw them every day, and not one of them ever said "well done." There's never a collective. There's never this collective community, and I don't know if you would have got it this week, Cal. For you'll be seeing lots of different British people, whether they're working in the media, whether they're working for the federation, but it's always something to me. I think the British tennis culture, which I can talk about, there's almost been a jealousy over the years. I always thought the Australians had it pretty good a few years ago. I felt I'd go to certain tournaments and the Australians would be watching each other and there was quite a collective. I don't feel that as much anymore. But on it, the Italians just seem to just all be supporting each other. There seems to be this incredible culture. And it actually was one of our strap lines at the academy, which was team environment, individual pathway. Something I really believe in. Like, I know it's an individual sport, but create a team environment and then you have individual pathways within that. And I feel like the Italians have nailed that.
It's basically what we try to do in Denmark. That's exactly the thing we try to do with our thing.
It's yes and no. In that you're right, they are very close, but it's a lot more natural, I think, than sort of putting a pathway and putting any sort of this is how we want to do it. What I know, because I know quite a few of the Italians relatively well through Vava and Bolelli, and also come to know Koboli quite well over the years because Henry actually played against him a couple of times in challenges in doubles, and they're kind of quite friendly with each other. But it's sort of, I don't think you can create what they've done, because the thing what stands out, they're actually mates. They're actually best friends. Like Koboli's best friend is Berrettini. Like in that they grew up together playing. Berrettini's, I think he's 3 or 4 years older. But there's a great clip that went round last year of them. Like they're both trained at the same academy, and sort of Koboli following Berrettini around when he's about 4 years younger than him. I think Berrettini's about 16 and he's 12, and kind of just hanging around with each other. And he's quite a cool video. And when they won the Davis Cup last year, I think it was an amazing video when Koboli wins it. Berrettini and Koboli were the two singles players. Berrettini's won his match, then Koboli wins it, and Berrettini runs on. He's the first person on to go and hug him, and it was like, it's really touching that, like, not only you've won it, but you've also won it with your best mate in the world. Like, that must be quite something. And I think that's different, I think, from creating a culture of people who know each other and get along with each other and can sort of, you can tell them this is how we operate, this is what we want to do. I don't think you can force people into being actual mates outside of tennis. And they all are. So, like I say, like Caboli and Berrettini are each other's best mates. And Vava is very close with Berrettini as well. And Vava is also very close with Irani, obviously, who is close with Paolini. And then you have all these others sort of around there. I mean, Bolelli's a little bit older than the rest of them. He kind of keeps himself to himself, but he's still friends with them. But I don't. I think it's very natural in that this group of players, male and female, grew up with each other, and it's kind of like they're just very, very close outside of tennis. They go like when it's the United Cup, like you see videos of them. They're all on the beach together. They socialize with each other. And I think they socialize with each other out of choice, in that they're each other's best mates. And I think that's where you get that closeness, as opposed to having a philosophy on it. I don't think the Italians ever have a philosophy. I think they've just happened to have got a group of people who are each other's best friends in the world.
There's a little bit of chicken and egg to it, because it also has to be an environment where that kind of relationships can thrive. And I've played a lot in Italy and played some Liga matches, and it just seems like everybody knows everybody across every level. And you hear you have a guy who's ranked 1,000, and he'll know a guy ranked 50 pretty well, and they all know each other. It's incredible.
I think what I'm getting to with this lot is you've got a quite a unique situation wherein you've got a group of people who are all around about the same age. I mean, they all get along with Sinner, but I don't think Sinner's as close with the rest of them as this group are. Like, you got that group of kind of Caboli, Berrettini, Vavasori, Pellegrino's in there, who's kind of just breaking the top 100. Arnaldi, a couple more whose names pass me by. Nardi, I think, is mates with them all. And then you've got Paolini and Irani as well. And I think what you've got is this group of people who all happen to be around about the same age, and who also are really, really good at tennis. And I think it's those things combined that you don't often get a group of sort of 10 people who are around the same age, who are all mates and are all really good and are all coming through at the same time. And I think that's where they've been. It's kind of more natural, I think, than what we have in Britain. Like Britain, we have, I know through Henry and Luke, they have friends they're people who they're really friendly with in tennis, and, they're friends in tennis. Like, Luke and Henry are kind of mates outside of tennis, but they have other people who they're friends with in tennis, but they don't really, like Luke had said, we were about asking, I think Louis asked Luke, who are your best friends in tennis? And he was like, well, Henry's my mate outside of tennis, but then there are other people who, Louis mentioned, he was like, I'm friends with them, but I don't really message them about anything other than tennis. And I think that's a kind of a thing in Britain. I don't think anyone dislikes each other in Britain, whereas this Italian group are, I think they socialize with each other. They're each other's best friends.
Okay, I'm going to throw something else out there then. So, is it an emotional thing? So, like, Italians are highly emotional, right? I've even gone to like the Italian, if anyone's watching this on YouTube, you'll see what I've done there with my fingers. But there is that kind of strong emotion that they maybe don't mind. Like Italians, like, they don't mind hugging each other. They don't mind probably kissing each other. There's this closeness.
3 of them have failed to finish the tournament for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, but I'm moving it away from the Italians. I actually want to move it to Brazilian culture as well. So, because for me, the Brazilian culture, it's that similar thing. There's this closeness. They're a bit more open with their emotions. There's like, and I had the absolute fortune of sitting with all of the Brazilians when Fonseca played Djokovic, which for me was match of the tournament. It was 5th set of the tournament. Incredible. And I want to throw this to you in a minute, Freddie, because I think we saw 2 things that day. We saw the one of the next biggest stars in the game was born on the big stage. I know we've been talking about him for a while. He finally showed it in the biggest of moments, and I think we also probably saw the last match at that level, maybe at Roland Garros, of arguably our greatest male tennis player, Novak Djokovic, and he performed incredibly well as well. However, when I looked around, you've got the Brazilian Fonseca's players box, and you had his parents who were highly emotional and involved, which kind of wouldn't be deemed right probably in our culture. I looked around. I don't think there was a Brazilian tennis player I didn't see in that stadium that night, and it was 9 p.m. at night, and quite a lot of them were still in the tournament. Now that shows also an incredible closeness of what they're doing. Why it's like that, I don't know. I guess we can speculate till the cows come home, but that wouldn't be the case. If Jack Draper is playing a night match at the French Open against Novak Djokovic, you will not have all other British tennis players. I don't know about Denmark. I don't know, but I would imagine there's very few countries as well. So I think that there is that feeling as well with the Brazilians. That's my long-winded way of saying, Freddie, how impressive was João Fonseca this French Open, and did we finally see what everyone's been talking about?
I think there was a little bit of a momentum going for the Brits after the COVID break, where the Brits had all those tournaments at home, and it seemed like at the first few tournaments back that they actually did come out to support each other a little bit more than they used to. But so maybe it's also because that the Brazilians, for being such a big country, they haven't relatively got that many players, so they're quite supportive of each other. And but yeah, to get to your point, it was pretty impressive. I mean, that last game, serving it out against Novak was, I think, I don't insult him by saying that was a pretty tight game to go down 30-40 and then just came up with ace. So, I mean, he's definitely not scared at the match against Casper as well. He just let it all fly. And maybe there's still a little bit to go because it didn't quite go his way against Mensik, but he's definitely getting closer and closer. And you'd kind of fancy him against anybody in a given match, especially on clay court, right? I don't think if he was playing Carlos or Senna, you would kind of keep an eye out for him and expect it to be tight. So it seems like he's finding his way. He's got some pretty solid people around him. He's fun to watch, and is he maybe the most supported guy in the world? It feels like it. I mean, he creates a certain hype and buzz around the crowd, as you witnessed.
And I think that can go for him and against him, because I think it's also pissing off some of the other players, actually. I think the Brazilian crowd goes a bit over the top, and we've now seen numerous players that have got in his face when they've beaten him, actually. And I think he's a lovely young man, but I think he's gonna carry the benefits of that, but also maybe a little bit of the downside as well.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to give the opponents an extra chance to an extra motivation to beat you, but on the other hand, I think if you're Fonseca, you'll take the support. I mean, he certainly. I don't know if you guys were there, if you saw it, but when he played doubles in Rio, for example, and the support was insane, and he was playing quite for them a legend with Melo, and he was letting it rip and getting so excited, and I think he thrives of it. I think he's going to be better for it.
I think his forehand is the most exciting shot in tennis right now.
I hadn't thought about that, but could be, yeah.
It's like almost the feeling I had, and it's the first time maybe where he's managed his forehand well. I don't think he managed it so well against Mensik. He went back to his old. He was playing too flat and too low, but almost like you could almost feel the gasp of the stadium when the ball went to his forehand. Almost like a bit like, and I don't like talking about Man United, but a bit like probably Ryan Giggs in his prime. When Ryan Giggs got the ball and you were like, the whole stadium would be like, whoa, what's he about to do? He's about to go down the left wing. He's about to take on the players. For me, it's had that sort of feeling, that sort of anticipation of like, he's about to let loose here. For me, I think
I told you about this, right? About that. And the first time I saw him, I was coaching a junior at French Open when he was there as a junior, walking in the first morning, and I was just watching people practice, and I heard the sound from the court, and I had to stop and turn around and see what the hell is going on here. and he was a junior, and then he came as a junior to be a sparring partner or a sixth guy or whatever he was for the Brazilian Davis Cup team. And I was almost thinking, I'm happy he's not in the team, because it looked like he was tearing everybody up in practice. And the way he was hitting the ball back then was, head turning, literally.
And Calv, I know you love him, and we've got this far and we've not mentioned him, but first time Grand Slam champion, Alexander Zverev.
I was texting in our other podcast group earlier on, and James, who hosts, said like this is not a great match in terms of level, and I said that but fortunately for Zverev, he's the best in the world, maybe the best in the world currently, maybe the best ever at winning crap tennis matches. And he just has a way of just has a way of winning him, and he's a really strange phenomenon, Zverev. Like, even if we take apart that, I don't think he's the most pleasant individual out there, and I don't think I get much disagreement on that. But just look at him as a tennis player. He's just such an odd tennis player in that. How many times, think through the years now, and he's been around now for 8 or 9 years. How many times have you ever seen him and thought, I'll tell you what, Zverev's playing well? Like, he just doesn't ever.
Only when he's serving really well, maybe.
No, but that's the thing. So James said that earlier, and I said, but then that would be okay if his identity was a serve bot, and he can serve exceptionally well. I mean, what he does exceptionally well is he serves at 75% all the time for serves, and that when you've got that serve and you can get in 3 out of 4 in, you're going to be tough to beat. But he's not really a serve bot. I feel like he's more than a serve bot. So you take that out, and he's in a lot of long rallies, but he never ever seems to be playing that well. But does have a way of winning. Like, he's kind of got this.
But he also never seems to be playing really terrible either, I think, to your point.
No, watch him. No, he doesn't. Given, but I mean, his forehand, he shanks 2 out of every 5 forehands that he hits.
Until he cramps, and then he hits his forehand bloody well. That was the saving grace.
I think he actually hit his forehand better than he has been in this tournament in general.
No, he has. He's on. But then again, today in the final, I didn't think he did.
He hit one forehand return on the break point in the third set. I think that was. I think then he's shocking stuff.
He kind of knows he's got to, but I just find him a really strange player. I mean, even today he's hit, I reckon, 3 of the worst volleys I've ever seen in a Grand Slam final today.
Is that in the game that he got broken at 3-3?
Yeah, I think there was 2 in that game, I think.
Right, yeah. Although Caboli hit a couple of shockers and overheads as well. So
Caboli hit the one on set point that was a really bad one. Initially, I thought it was a drop in concentration. I think then when I saw the replay, I think he just choked.
It got a bit high, maybe.
You could see that the arm just collapsed. The arm just turned to jelly on it. But then he hit a great shot the point after.
Gabby said we need to invite him to some doubles practices. We were watching it together. She was like, I think we need to get these guys into some of our doubles practices, Dan. Flipping, eh?
Yeah.
Never seen so many overheads and volleys missed. That was his.
My wife was saying the same. She's going, what's going on with these matches? She's not into tennis. She's like, I did not. What was?
Well, the thing is, though, as well, is that I feel, and I do feel this about. I don't think, and I don't want to sound negative about this. I actually, and I hope. There's certain things to believe that it could change, especially with Fonseca coming, and I think Kwame's coming as well. I actually don't think men's tennis is in a great spot at the minute, and for a few reasons. That, I mean, my friend messaged me, and my friend's a writer for The Guardian, and he does The Guardian blog on the tennis, and he messaged me a bit, asking sort of, what's going on here with the tactics and that kind of thing, and he said, what's Caboli's game plan today? And I said that this is where tennis is in such a strange spot at the minute, in that all the players basically play exactly the same way. They're all ball striking baseliners. And I don't really know how much tactics is discussed anymore. It feels like every match is just they play from the baseline and one of them just hits the ball better. And today, I was watching the match today, I was baffled that Caboli I reckon he hit probably 65-70% of his balls to Zverev's backhand.
I couldn't agree more in general with everything you said.
And I find that what worries me is the players are just the same. There's not a real load of variation in it, and there isn't even many left-handers. There's only Shelton, who's a left-hander. So basically, what we've got is all these right-handed, relatively complete. They're all pretty solid, clean ball strikers from the back of the court. None of them can really volley. Like who is the good volleyers in the men's game now? I mean, Alcaraz is quite good. When I say this, Fred, I think around shoulder height when they've hit a great forehand. I think they're all pretty competent on that, other than Zverev, who can't volley. But the rest of them, I feel like it's like they kind of all play the same. Their tactic is there anything interesting going on tactically in any of the matches with it? It just feels like they just go out there and play their game and see if it's enough. And I think that's a little bit of a concern. I also don't think we're just not getting enough matches. Like, an interesting thing I read earlier on that these two on their way to the final they played one top 10 player combined between them. You would hope that in slams in particular, we're just not getting enough of those matches. I mean, there's various reasons for that, in that Alcaraz and Sinner just chop everyone up. But even in this one now, we're just not getting those big matches. I would like to have seen like a Rublev versus Zverev in a quarterfinal or something like that, or Shelton against Caboli in a semi or something. But we're just not getting enough of that. It feels like nobody between the ranking of 4 and 20 has any level of consistency at the minute.
But what I think we've got, which I think is exciting, I think we got Fonseca, I think we got Mensik, I think we got Kawami, I think we got these players that are also, and I think you said it, Calv, on a podcast, maybe it was our live podcast, but you said you hope one of the next gen Hodar wins it, because it's almost like if someone like Zverev wins, it's almost just like, he's won, but once Alcaraz and Sinner are back, he's just going to lose to them again because he doesn't believe.
No, I stand by that. I don't think this moves the needle at all.
No, I don't. But I do think we are seeing. I think some of those young guns have got a bit of something about them, actually, and I think tennis is potentially in an exciting place with them, actually. I think that's where.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that is the case, but we're still probably a couple of years from that, though.
Yeah. I'm convinced on Fonseca now. Convinced. I'm convinced that he's gonna push Alcaraz Sinner over the next couple of years.
I think he's going to be a very, very good player. I think he's going to be a top 5 player. I'm not certain he's going to be a top 1 or 2.
I think he's going to win at least 4 Grand Slams.
Oof, tough call. But then again, at one point, the generation is going to fall, and then he's going to be mid-20s. It's tough to predict what's going to happen.
No, but I just saw it sometimes, and look, we can all be wrong. I remember I was once. When was it that? But it's like there was a moment. There was. I felt I experienced a moment that night. Yeah, there was like, and I remember Andy Murray 2012 being, lucky enough to sit in his box that night when he played Novak Djokovic, and he won the third set 7-6. And for me, there was this moment of belief of like, shit, I can do it. And he didn't win that match, but then he went on and he won the Olympics and he won US Open that year. And I really felt there was the moment there. That set, that Fonseca 5th set against Novak Djokovic, for me, there was a moment of like, yes, he's got it. He's got it. The belief system has got it now. He believes in it. Physically, he's got to maybe get a little bit stronger to be able to get himself through the slams. But for me, he took it up 2 or 3 levels, this Roland Garros. I really believe that. I think he went from there up 2 or 3 levels in terms of what he did, in terms of how he served, in terms of how he defended the backhand corner and was able to counterattack. Felt his movement was better. And his forehand is just an incredible shot. And I just think, I'm really excited for what he's got and bringing. I don't really particularly get that excited over Mensik in terms of his type of tennis, but he's bloody good. I think Mensik.
Yeah, but he was just so disappointing in his attitude in the semis, I thought. Did you guys have any belief that he believed he could win?
No, but I also think he played too much tennis. I think it was a miracle that he did. Did you see him earlier on in the tournament? I mean, he had 20 minutes on the floor, couldn't get up. That was
Yeah, but
first
then
round, second round.
he routined Fonseca.
Yeah, well, it was a great end to the third set. I think these guys played too much tennis. I think what the tournament brought was just there was almost too much tennis happened for so many of them, and they weren't quite ready. They weren't quite ready for the amount of tennis that's needed to win a Grand Slam or to go deeper. But I think Mensik's the real deal as well.
I'm yet to be convinced. What's the real deal?
Yeah,
Top 10. Give me top 10 for sure. I think that's definitely going to happen. But what is the real? It's a high ceiling, right? Top 10 is you're pretty much a deal. If you make top 10 and you win Miami. Well, how old was he when he won Miami?
I think
13
Mensik and Fonseca are Grand Slam winners.
Kino, do you think Fonseca wins one of the next 8 Grand Slams?
I think he has a shot.
Well, are you in the running to be a politician? It was pretty unambiguous question. As I understood it, it was a multiple choice of yes and no.
I'll let you think on it a bit, because I'm going to tell you why I ask. I have a thinking on this, that when those players break through, those guys who are going to be at the very top, in the same way that Djokovic did, Murray was a little bit different. Nadal wasn't. Federer wasn't. But they start beating those top players early. Like, I think, for example, Murray won his first match against Federer. Nadal either won his first or second match against Federer. Djokovic had won a slam. He won the 2007 Australian Open. They have these. It's all right, having these matches where you're beating 40-year-old Novak Djokovic and that kind of thing. But if that was one of those guys, they'd started already beating, or soon they'd be beating Federer and Nadal and Djokovic, that kind of thing. And I worry that if these guys don't win one of the next 8, because that's another 2 years away. That's another 2 years. If they don't do it then the scar tissue starts to come.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think Fonseca will win a Grand Slam by the end of 2028.
So one of the next 8 to 10, you're saying?
Yeah. And I think he has to. I agree with you, by the way, Calv. I think he has to. If we're talking about him being, unless he's going to be a Zverev or a Medvedev, right? If we're talking about him being someone who is that multiple Grand Slam champion, who's then I think I agree. I think he has to. If he's someone that's going to be pushing Sinner and Alcaraz over the next few years, I would agree that in the next 2 to 3 years.
I mean, how old is he now? Is he 19, Fonseca?
I think he's probably turned 20, has he? I mean, he's. Let me. You guys keep talking. And
what I'm saying is, you can't get to. I don't think it's possible for, and this is where the last generation of players struggled here, like Tsitsipas and Rublev and Zverev to a degree, and that kind of thing. You can't be getting to kind of 22, although 22 is still young. You can't be getting to 22 having not won a slam and having like a 0-9 record against Sinner and Alcaraz, because I don't think you recover from that. I think then you're in the.
He's 20 in August.
I think then you're in the spiral of, like, I don't know if you turn it round at that point.
And I think to add to your point about the lack of tactics and stuff, I think also that the modern way, because they hit so hard and it's so much about emotional energy. I mean, the interaction between the box and the players now, it does my head in a little bit. It's too much, in my opinion. And I think these young players could help by getting their floor up a little bit, so that they can cruise through some matches a little bit more. It seems like it's battles and it's world-class tennis and it's screamers in the corner and it's fist pumps to the box and whatnot, instead of give me some boring 3, 5, and 2s or something where they're cruising. You don't see the good tennis, and then bring out the good tennis when they're really forced to bring it out, because I think it drains them. And I think maybe all that emotional energy he spent kind of, and lack of tactical awareness, made him kind of run out of steam against Mensik. And I think the ceiling is not the problem. We've all seen that. But I think if you want to win multiple slams, the wins gotta be coming a little bit more automatic, and you gotta be able to win a little bit easier when you don't bring your best stuff. And I think that's the issue with a lot of the young guys. And I think that's why Zverev is so consistent. Why I think he was the overwhelming favorite to win this tournament, after besides the sinner, and usually also Carlos, because he just has that high of a floor, and that is more important in many ways to compete at the slams than the high ceiling, because these guys all have high ceiling, but it's about controlling that. I think that's going to be the key for the youngsters.
Freddie, great point. 19 years old, Fonseca turns 20 in August. The women's champion is also 19.
Can I just say one more thing also to that? I remember, I think it was Australia last year. We talked about who was going to have a better career, Fonseca or Pericard. Look how quickly that got away from Pericard, and it seems like he's got a mountain to climb to get back to where he was supposed to be here.
Nowhere near right now.
Exactly. So it can go quick. I mean, he looked very promising, and we were I remember I was asked who was going to have the better career, kind of thinking with the Serb, blah blah blah. I think I ended up on Fonseca, but still he was in. There was a legitimate talk about it, and now it looks like it's going to be tough. So there's so many things that could happen on the way, right?
Well, Pericard's not 19, so you're making my smooth transition into Mirra Andreeva much more difficult. But Fonseca is 19. And guess who else is 19, Calvin? Also, the women's champion, who I picked. Did I pick her? I'm sure I saw on Instagram that I'd picked her. Anyway, Mirra Andreeva.
You see your own Instagram? Wow.
And to be honest, she kind of cruised, right? It was kind of, I know the draw opened. It almost, you're talking about like the dramas. I always felt with Mirra Andreeva, and I've commentated a few of her matches, and it's such a drama. So what is she? She's like crying, she's shouting, it's all happening. It's, she wins a set easy, then she goes down 5-love, and whereas it just felt like she was pretty mature this whole event, and just kind of cruise through, Calv.
Yeah, she did. I think she was helped by a lot of stuff as well. I mean, the match I was looking forward to was Kostyuk and Andreeva, but Kostyuk, she couldn't really handle the day, I don't think. She really struggled, and then she was given a bit of a lifeline. She got back into it, and then crazily, I think she was a set, but she lost the first set easy, and then she was break down in the second set. Got the break back, worked really hard to get the break back, and then just handed it straight back to Andreeva, just absolutely leathering 4 balls as hard as she could, that all went out. And I think I thought Kostyuk was going to win it at that point. Before she played Andreeva, but yeah, it didn't happen. And Andreeva she had a pretty easy run of it. Like she wasn't really challenged in terms of.
She went first round 3-3, second round 3-6, 6-1, 6-1, third round 6-4, 6-2, last 16 6-3, 6-2, quarterfinal 6-love, 6-3, semi-final 6-1, 6-3, final 6-3, 6-2.
No, she was the best player. There's no doubt she's the best player. And I think it's good for the game that she's won. I think she's a very good player, and she's a star. She's compelling. She's interesting, and when she speaks, I think she gives really, really good interviews. She seems like a funny girl.
She thanked herself.
Yeah, thanks herself.
She did.
We've got this kind of. I think what has been interesting is, for the first time in a while in tennis, and we've had a kind of like there's been a little bit of a political debate going on, especially on the women's side with the Russian things and that kind of thing. It's a little bit of strange seeing how that's playing out, I think, in that Kostyuk was very aggressive. Kostyuk and I'll let you pronounce the other girl's name, Kiernan, the other Ukrainian girl. Olyanakova, is it? Or
okay, yeah, I'll let you have that. Yeah.
She sort of made some comments. I thought she made us a really good comment when she lost to Schneider, I think in the 4th round maybe, and she sort of said that Billie Jean King fought for like people to have spokespeople and role models, and she said like role models and speaking up is not just about we should be earning more money. It's actually about other things. There are bigger things in in this world than just earning more money. And and I think she was right in saying that. It was a bit I found it a little bit concerning, both when Andreeva and Schneider were questioned on this stuff about Russia and the war in Ukraine. They both pretty much had the same answers. Well, almost exactly the same answers, and it looked like they'd been fed, "This is what you're going to say," and I found that a little bit worrying in that regard. And then Kostyuk raised it again. I don't think Kostyuk went the right way of doing it. She went mega aggressive and didn't really get anywhere. But I do think it's interesting that the women's game, there is some debate on that.
More so than in the men's game, huh?
No high-profile Ukrainians, and there's no Russians really that are getting. I mean, Khachanov, I never seen him interviewed. Rublev, same. Like he's not winning. He's not winning enough big matches to be getting interviewed. But yeah, I think it's more the Ukrainian women who are up there. What I find strange is, and I'm interested to know why like their sort of PR people are not saying this, because I know that Kostyuk came in with all the Ukrainian girls came in with that. I don't know how those girls sleep at night when they're not willing to speak up. When people are dying, people are getting bombed, children are dying, and they don't seem bothered. I don't know how they've managed to get through days. I don't know how they sleep and all that kind of thing. And I think it would be more. What I don't get is why Kostyuk didn't say something like, "Look, I know why they're not speaking, because they're scared. They're scared of what might happen in their home country to their own families if they speak too much about it. But I don't hold them responsible. I know that I would be scared as well, and I empathize for them. I think she'd get more by saying that than just going on the full aggression of sort of name calling those players."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a challenging thing for us as grown men to talk on these things, and we don't have a high profile. We don't have a platform to do that. You put a 19-year-old girl there that, let's be honest, probably doesn't know much other than the tennis world, out there, and absolutely, I'm sure she is completely afraid of saying anything. Probably isn't massively informed in her world that she lives.
Yeah.
She's traveling the world with like the rest of us in this kind of traveling circus. She probably doesn't know a whole lot what's going on, but also, like you say, what can she say? What can Mirra Andreeva say that isn't going to have a potentially a negative effect on her family and a family's world?
I have more sympathy with Andreeva and Schneider, or I have more empathy with them than I did with. I was quite critical of a lot of the American players in the Australian Open, and still am, where I thought that they just weren't interested in standing up for anything. Like they were questioned on. I think that was when the war in Iran maybe started, and they were just like, "Oh, I'm not here to talk. I'm just focusing on my game." And I was thinking, no, they're not. There's no reason for them to be scared in America. They're just basically thinking, I don't want to lose any sponsors here. Whereas I think that in the Russian situation is quite a bit different, and I do empathise, and I'm surprised, and I think that they would. What I don't get is I think that those Ukrainian players would get more traction if they said that, and they kind of throwing it back on. They're kind of throwing it back on the Russian girls, and I think that they would look a lot more human as well. I was really hoping that, and listen, I'm not going to criticize Kostyuk whatsoever, because it's a horrible situation that she's in as well. Her family still live in Kiev. But when I thought there was a split second, I thought at the end of the match where like Andreeva looked up and sort of was hoping that Kostyuk, I think, was going to shake her hand. And there was kind of like, maybe it's just me imagining it, but there looked to be like she looked up and there was a disappointment, and I think it would just be more powerful if she went, "Look, I'm not holding it against these girls. These are 19-year-old girls. I know why they're not talking. They're scared because that's the way that country operates." And I think that would be more powerful message, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the message of love is a more powerful message than the message of hate, right?
Yeah,
and that's if maybe the platform could be used for that, but
because apart from anything else, look, what's happening at the minute isn't working. It doesn't seem to be affecting the. I think what they hoped was that this would look bad on Russia, and then that would somehow stop what's happening. But they haven't been having their flags on for 4 years.
Everyone's numb to it all now. It's just whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's sad in itself as well. I think that's not ideal that we just don't talk about anymore when it's still going on. But at the same time, I think maybe
I'm talking about with what the sport's doing and with the flag.
Yeah, I think maybe a different tact would come in. But like I say, I don't know why it can't be. Like Kostyuk's people can't be talking to her and say, "Look, maybe try this. This might be a better way of doing it."
Also, don't underestimate the message that it brings back in Ukraine. Just internally, sometimes it's also to speak to them and to show that it's not only outwards but also to send a message back home.
Yeah, a little bit more nuance would help everyone, I think. But again, like I say, it was a bit dodgy that Schneider and Andreeva both had the exact same lines. And that just reeked of, the word coming from the Russian government. This is what you're going to say if you're asked about it. And it was both. When I'm out there playing, I'm only playing the ball. I'm not playing an opponent. I'm just trying to do what's good for my tennis, and that kind of thing.
We have to mention the finalist, Olenska.
Yeah.
I mean, what a story. I mean, obviously, Emma.
What a dark horse that would have been.
That was a serious dark horse, coming through qualifying. She got into qualifying as well. Sometimes we pick dark horses that don't even get into qualifying, but she actually got into she actually got into the event. Yeah, incredible, really, and never previously beaten the top 50 player. She beat 4 on the way to the final. She's only the second qualifier in the Open era to reach a Grand Slam singles final after Emma Raducanu in the 2021 US Open. The Roland Garros final was her first top 10 battle in professional tennis. I mean, you go on and on. She ended 2023 ranked 349th in the world, and she climbs up to world number 21 on Monday, but will be in Wimbledon qualifying the following week unless All England Club give her a wild card. These are the stories we like in tennis, Freddie, and I think these are the stories that just show how close the level really is, and I think we know it. We know that a player ranked 130 in the world is absolutely capable of beating a player ranked 20 in the world. Sometimes they're kind of pushed as second-class citizens. She can seriously play. She played with Iga Swiatek in the juniors. There's some nice videos come out of them playing at Aussie Open and kind of growing up together. Very, very skillful lefty. Maybe didn't quite show up in the final, but...
Definitely did not see that one coming. Very good effort. I will say she looked pretty composed in the semifinals, though. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch much of the final, but the semifinals, she looked pretty composed as if she belonged there, and she played well. I think it's a great story for everyone to show that everybody has their own individual path, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And if you keep plugging away, who knows what's going to fall your way. And I also like that she played a little bit unconventional and shows that there's also a different way to do it. Kind of like, like what Cal just said, that a lot of it is big hitting. I think that's also a lot of the case on the women's side, but it was nice to see somebody who played very differently. And a lot of time for that story. So well done to her.
I think the slowest average forehand speed in the whole of the women's draw, I read.
Yeah, there you go. And it was also I think I saw a stat that she was winning a lot of her points from defense. So she was obviously a good runner. And I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't seem like that game style is going to have longevity on the tour at that level. I would be surprised that after the French Open next year, she's going to have a ranking similar to where she is now. But I will be happy to be surprised if that's different. But nevertheless, it's a great story, and she's basically earned herself now a year of being at the best tournaments after having played mainly on the challenger circuit so far. And she seems like a lovely girl, very composed, calm. Maybe she can keep it up. I just feel like that game style is going to be tough on the grass and the North American hard courts and the Asian hard courts. So Well, we'll see. Maybe she's adaptable.
And her fellow countrywoman, Iga Swiatek, she's changed coaches. She's tried different things, but she looks in a bad place. For me, watching that match with Kostyuk, it was like, who's the multiple Grand Slam champion in this match? Kostyuk's got this kind of different mindset. I know fell apart a little bit in the semis, but she's got this mindset of like, it doesn't matter how I do, I can handle it. She doesn't seem as attached to the results as she once was, and used to get highly emotional on the court. Whereas Iga looks miserable. She doesn't look right. She looks in quite a dark place really out there.
Yeah, I mean, she has no capacity at the minute to be able to withstand any pressure on her. It's like nobody who's as good as she is should be losing as many sets as she does by 6-1 and 6-love. It's incomprehensible to me that she keeps losing sets so comfortably. It's when she goes behind, she just can't settle herself at all. She can't rescue herself, and I think there's certain factors in that I have opinions as to why that might be, but it's probably like we can't go into that now. And I think it's not a good place to be. I'm not sure. I think she'll find her way back, but I'm not certain she will.
And we can't fully go into that probably, but it's independence versus dependency.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel that she has any independence in terms of who she wants to be. Like even like Mirra Andreeva, and she talked about her sports psychologist, and making a choice on who she wants to be. Who does she want to be on the court? And I always think that is the player's choice. Like that identity of who you want to be, how you want to act, what type of. It doesn't look to me that Iga's really making any decisions of that regard. It doesn't. She's not in that headspace in any way, and even the way you can see that she looks at the box constantly. There is this dependency there, and she feels like she needs to break free and be Iga Swiatek, who she wants to be on the tennis court.
Yeah, I'd agree, 100%. But with the situation and the people around her, I'm not sure that I see a pathway to that directly.
And then the last one we have to mention, Aryna Sabalenka. She's never struggled with independence on the tennis court, as our Aryna, and I actually commentated the match against Osaka, and I thought, she looks good. Serving beautifully, looked like she meant business. Woke up a couple of days later, the wind was winding pretty heavily. Chatrier, as Calvin alluded to in the men's doubles, on those days where those, I think the court does get extremely wet and those conditions get very heavy. There's a lot of clay on Chatrier in the wind, and I was watching that match and setting 4-1 up, and then she was 4-3, setting 4-3 up, and she was going crazy at her box. And I was like, it's easy to look from the outside, but it was like, look, you're setting 4-3 up, you're doing all right here. And then she went 5-3 up, and you thought, well, okay, now rein yourself back in. But she didn't. She just kept on that train, whatever. She obviously felt uncomfortable. She obviously, in those conditions, I know she doesn't. She's quite outwardly and being open about not liking to play in windy conditions. And then she lost 10 games in a row, and we saw a meltdown that wouldn't look out of place at a junior tournament, Freddie.
I think that will help the legacy of the last few generations of consistent winners a little bit by seeing how difficult it is to sustain this kind of quality day in and day out and keep going deep in these slams, because it takes a toll. I think a little bit of what you talked about with Sinner might come into play here. And it might be windy, but it was windy up until a set in 4-1 as well. So if you can get that far, you could probably get it over the goal line as well. And, if there's a little bit of stress, it doesn't take much to kind of trigger that. And then anything can be the reason why you lose the plot a little bit. And that's why the sport is difficult. And I think, like I said, for many years, players have made it look easy, and it's not. It's very difficult, and I think also nowadays it might even be even more difficult with all the stuff that goes on outside the court. There's a lot of scrutiny. People know everything that's going on, and these players are human. It's pretty clear that there was that there was that she lacked a little bit of calmness in her competition frame of mind there, and that's what it's all about. That's why we lace them up. That's why we play the matches, and that's why, that's why sports is difficult.
Last little debate, nothing to do with tennis players per se, other than Roland Garros is now the only Grand Slam in the world not using electronic line calling. In Strasbourg the week before WTA, it's not a French thing because Strasbourg had electronic line calling. The French Tennis Federation defended its decision by saying it will continue to show off the excellence of French umpiring, which is recognised across the world. I certainly firsthand as a coach had quite a few incidents that happened. In one of the matches, Evan King hit a volley. I swear down, he was 3 feet from the net. And he hit the volley, and the ball then hit the net, and it went over. It was 7-6. At the time, it was 7-6 4-all in a pretty tense match, and then 15-all. And he was called for touch. They said he touched the net. There was now nothing he could do about that. I mean, he was nowhere near the net. There was another big point where Gabby hit a great return, landed on the baseline. The opponent hit the ball back, and a partner was about to knock the ball away. They called that ball out. Obviously, it wasn't out. They came back and saw it. That seems to happen a lot. We saw in the final today, there was a serve that they showed on TV that even my eye...
It was set point. I think it was the third set point. We gone from 40-love to 40-30, and then that happened.
Yeah, so it seemed to be happening a lot. Are we trusting that the French are just great at their jobs and they don't need it, or is it time, Freddie, for Roland Garros to get on in line with the rest of the world?
I've always been of the belief that there's a little bit of, I don't know, with the clay and the surface change, that it creates an anomaly that might be that the court guy isn't as credible on clay as it is on the other surfaces. However, there's also the human element that makes it that there's an element of error as well, and what it just does is that it takes subjectivity out of the equation. I think it helps every player to move on from that. But I think, I don't know about it, but I think this is all just comes down to a clothing contract for the line umpires to wear for people to see, right? I think that's basically what it is. And whenever that contract's up, then I think we're going to see the technology come into play.
Calv?
I mean, I think, from what I'm told, there's a little bit more to it than that. I mean, the French have a very, very strong competition structure, and not all the clubs can have electronic line calling, so they need umpires. And in order to have umpires for those tournaments, you need to offer them something else, which is the payday at Roland Garros. However, it is archaic. It's just silly now, but there's a lot. I don't think the French won't be pressured into it. There's a lot of stuff at this tournament that is crazy, and every time you raise anything, they don't care. They don't care about anyone's outside opinions at all. I spoke with a tournament director of another tournament, a big tournament, ran into him on the street, and had a chat with him for about 20 minutes. Don't want to say who it is, don't want to get anyone into any trouble. But needless to say, he's a tournament director of a very big tournament. And he told me, he said in his words, I can't believe it's a major tournament, this one. Like, there's so much stuff that is so far away from how any other major tournament deals with things. And he said the root of it all is they do not take any feedback at all. They don't care for any feedback. You know, the stuff about earlier on in the week with those advertising boards that a couple of players got injured on. And, you know, that stuff came in, and their response was, we'll look at it, but we don't think there's any need to change anything. The court covers at the back of the court, which 2 players slipped on. I know Mate Pavic got a bad injury on it. He was told about it, didn't care. I know on John Boin, which for any listeners who don't know, it's the main practice site, which is just across the street from Roland Garros. Lovely facility, really nice club. Really enjoy being there. But on each of the courts, they have floodlights strangely positioned on the courts where they're kind of like, they're not in the corner, they're at the side of the courts, and you can run into them. And I know that it's been suggested by various people over the years, because 3 people told me this year. They've said to them, look, you can't move the floodlights, but you have to put some padding on those floodlights because they're dangerous. People are going to run into them. And they said they've been saying this for 7 years, and every time they just get a response of, we don't think there's a problem. And that sums the tournament up. You know, every year, the food is notoriously by far the worst of any major tournament.
I can't believe it. I literally can't. Every time I go, I'm thinking, am I being too harsh?
Nothing changes. The same menu.
I had a classic where, so I had three different teams in the event. So you as you guys know, but you go and you speak to the ATP, WTA, and also the referee's office, and you fill out a form to let them know that, you know, I'm coaching these teams, and if you could consider that when you're doing the schedule. And the first round of the doubles runs across 3 days. And all of my pairs are playing other doubles teams, so there's no singles players involved. So there's no, you know, obviously that can sometimes be a little bit of jeopardy in terms of the schedule. And the schedule comes out on the Wednesday, and all 3 of my pairs are playing 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning. So anyway, I don't say anything. You know, I've got that's whatever. It's just the players will all work out that they don't need me, which is probably my bigger concern. You know, at least I can pretend that they need me if I'm there. And so I go and speak to them afterwards, and they just went, we try, but the computer, we can't do anything about the computer. I said, what do you mean the computer? They said, we put the information in the computer, and the computer does the schedule. We try.
Yeah, they don't. That's the response all the time.
It was like
all the time. We don't.
It was too good. It was too.
We don't care. We don't care.
And just to add to the food thing, just because it's not like real first world problems here. They charge a lot of money for that food.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's not just that it's low quality, and these are for players who have to compete at the slams. They charge a lot of money for it.
Yeah. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And also, like, little things like they won't open the restaurant before 11 a.m. You know, like Henry and Harry's match yesterday. Henry and Harry are playing a Grand Slam final yesterday at 11 a.m. and they need some food. And you really have to argue with them on it. And you have to get basically the ATP supervisor to come down and go, you need to cook them some rice. Like,
that's absolutely next level. The thing with the restaurant that starts at 11 and matches start at 11. It's insane.
It's absolutely wild, and it's not like, you know, the other slams. They have breakfast on a morning. I can go into Australia. They've got a full breakfast menu on. Wimbledon the same. French Open. No, there's no food whatsoever. We start serving food at 11.
You got some candy. The candy shop was open. Really dangerous, that candy shop. Guys, you've been amazing as always with your time. We're in the grass court season. Very quickly, give me one story for us to look forward to as we move. Well, we're already in the grass court season, which seems a bit wild. But what's one storyline for us to look out for?
It's going to be, for me, who's Sinner going to play in the final at Wimbledon?
I think that putting on the spot, I can't think of anything else than Serena's comeback.
I'm not getting involved in that nonsense.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but it's going to be a big story, however way you want to put it.
I find it a remarkable situation that no one is like commenting that she's 46 now or 45, hasn't played for 4 years and is just coming back. And I'm told with good authority that she's basically being paid by the Ozempic company that she gets sponsored by. They've paid her to come back a phenomenal amount of money to basically come back and promote their product. Yeah.
Does that mean we're all going to be skinny soon? Not with the sweet shop at Paris, I tell you.
I mean, what cracks me up with Serena is the amount of lying she does, and no one comments on anything. So she came back on the doping register. So when you come back on the doping register, she's coming back at that point, because there's no point in going back on the doping register unless you're going to play tennis again. She goes back to the doping register and then she gets asked, "Are you coming back?" "Don't be silly. I'm not coming back, guys. Stop asking silly questions. I'm not coming back." And then she's back. And then everybody knows her intention is to play singles. And today in her press conference, which apparently she turned up for a press conference 3 hours late today, on her first press conference back, and people are asking about singles, and she goes, "It's not on my radar at the minute. I have no intention of playing singles." Everybody around her knows she's planning on playing singles. So they're lying all the time.
Yeah.
I thought you weren't going to get involved.
That's my last word.
Thank you. Go. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much. As we talked about at the start, lots to discuss. We discussed lots of those points, and I'm sure there's lots more that we could have talked about, because it was quite an incredible 2 weeks in Paris, or 3 weeks, with people coming through the qualifying event as well. We didn't even discuss the heat, how hot that first week was, to then the more French-like, Paris-like weather in the second week. But yeah, it's just the drama that these major championships bring us. We're very lucky to be involved in this incredible sport, and already here we are. I'm here in London, just outside of Queen's Club, not so far away as that gets underway. The qualifying's happened this weekend. My players, Gabby Dabrowski and Louisa Stefani, they'll start their doubles campaign on Tuesday or Wednesday, as the same day that maybe Serena Williams is making her much anticipated comeback. Not anticipated by Calvin, but by everybody else. I think people are anticipating that one. And then we will have Toggenbosch, Stuttgart. We've got all Ilkley, all of these different places where you can see grass court tennis. And before you know it, we'll be chatting about SW19 and the Wimbledon that we all know is gonna deliver, as it always does. I hope that the rain stays away. The forecast is not so good in London this week. We will aim to be back with a couple of guests before we bring you the preview, to get some of those stories out there over the next couple of weeks. But until next time, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllables.